Good evening all and welcome to the Council meeting. I am Councillor Preeti Hud, the Mayor. In June 2017, 72 of our residents tragically lost their lives in the fire at Grenfell Tower. I ask every member of the Council to pay our deepest and continuing respects in the conventional manner by marking the moment with 72-second silence now. Would everyone please stand? Thank you. The minutes of the previous meeting have been circulated. Pages 33 to 48 of the supplementary pack. Councillor Dr. Mona Ahmed has been added to the list of attendees. Are they agreed? Does any member wish to declare a disclosable, pecuniary or any other significant interest in any item being considered at tonight's meeting? Councillor Benton.
Thank you, Mayor. Lovely to see you all again.
Could you please speak in the microphone? Thank you.
Okay, is this better? Okay. At the Council meeting on 26th of April 2023, I made a remark during a speech by Councillor Kim Taylor-Smith in which I used inappropriate language towards it. The subject of the speech was something on which I felt strongly, and in the heat of the moment I used language that I now regret. I would have dealt with the matter sooner, but I've been unwell for a lengthy period since that meeting. I accept that this was a breach of the Councillor Code of Conduct, and I therefore apologise to Councillor Taylor-Smith and to the Council for my remark. I'd like to add one thing as well, which is that I truly believe that I'm here to serve, and this has been a distraction. So that's really my skin in the game, and I apologise for that. I don't want any of these things to get in the way of any of us doing our duty and serving our constituents. Thank you.
Councillor Taylor-Smith.
Benton back to the chamber. Thank him for his words and apology accepted. Thank you.
I would like to update members about the work of Felix Project, my mayoral charity. I am going to invite Dan Bymshaw from the charity to address the council for up to 2 minutes. It seems he's not here, so we'll move on. There's one other announcement. I would also like to advise members that the Mayor's Awards are now open for nominations in 3 categories: individual contributions, young achiever, and voluntary and community organisation. Details are on the Council website. You have until 5 p.m. Monday, 22nd of January 2024 to submit your nominations. I would also like to add this is a full Council meeting for the Royal Borough of Kensington Chelsea Council, held in public and focuses on local issues. I am aware that the international situation in Israel-Gaza is causing great concern and very much on people's minds at present. For the benefit of all present, I want to let you know that the situation in Gaza is referred to tonight in 3 questions under items 5 and 12, which will be responded to by members of the majority party and the official opposition only. I shall now ask the Chief Executive to report apologies for absences or lateness for this meeting.
Thank you. I've received apologies for absence from Councillors Cyron, Issay, Marshall, Schmetterling and Graham.
Madam Mayor, may I also include Councillor Sina Lara, who's running a bit late for a few minutes.
Thank you. Item 5 is public speaking. I will invite those who have registered in advance to speak to address Council in turn for no more than 5 minutes each. A member of the leadership team and member of the principal minority party will then be able to respond for up to 2 minutes. We have seven people who have registered to speak. Therefore, I invite everyone to be as brief as possible. The purpose of this part of the Council meeting is for those who live, work or go to school in the borough to raise issues of local concern. So I would like to thank the speakers for coming along tonight and would also remind them to bear this in mind when it's their turn to speak. I will ask any speakers who reach their 5 minutes to bring their address promptly to a close to ensure that all speakers have a fair and equal opportunity to be heard and to receive responses from all councillors. I'm going to read out a question on behalf of Xavier Benoit. Concerning the persistent littering issue on private properties, I am eager to understand the Council's approach in actively assisting affected residents. Simply requesting litter to be moved to the streets for collection isn't adequate, especially when hazardous waste is hidden in boxes or bedding sheets. What specific measures is the Council considering to promptly aid residents dealing with litter on their property? Additionally, I am seeking insights into proactive initiatives given the inefficiencies of conventional methods like fines or anti-littering boards. How does the Council plan to effectively address this challenge? Councillor Kamali, to respond for 2 minutes, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm sorry. There's obviously some history to this case, of which I'm not aware from hearing the question, and I'd be happy to pick it up with the resident in question. But on a more broader point that they touched on at the end of their question, we have, as of last year until today, issued over 900 fixed penalty notices for littering. We've taken a much harder line on people that make the look of our streetscape that much worse. And we have recently also procured a number of small vehicles that will go around collecting rubbish out of sync with the twice weekly bin collections that we already offer. As of today, in fact, I've also procured additional services that will be able to go around the borough day and night grabbing bags, as we're aware that a number of our residents, be them visiting temporary residents, aren't fully aware of our rules and sometimes need to learn. So we're going to make sure that we're collecting their rubbish whilst we educate those that are here more briefly. But I'm happy to take this individual point away with the resident and find out whether it's a particular managing agent issue, a building itself, or whether there's something that the council could do more of. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Lowry, do you respond for 2 minutes, please?
Sure. Madam Mayor, whilst I'm unfamiliar with the precise case or the location of the questioner's problem, I fully share that concern. It's a major issue for us in my ward of Goulburn. It also affects people who live near trees. When you go up Ladbroke Grove, all those trees there are continually dumped upon, and we spend literally months and years trying to find a permanent solution. If you complain enough, the council will eventually remove the rubbish, but there is no permanent solution which has mitigated this. Residents have suggested some creative ideas like fencing around particular problem trees, but the Environment Department hasn't actually taken that up yet. You can issue as many fines or as many letters as you want, but if you have a transient population in some areas, as Councillor Kamali mentioned, or people who just don't listen, you need some more actually effective measures. So I think the fencing in some areas could be explored, but otherwise I'm happy to hear more from the constituent if they give me their address, and I'll follow up with them directly.
Thank you, and thank you, Xavier Benoit, for his question. I would now like to invite Sheraz Razak to ask a question. Sarah Razak, you have up to 5 minutes.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to speak here today. My name is Shiraz Razak. I am here representing the parent volunteers at Thomas Jones Primary School on St. Mark's Road, W11. I'm also representing the local residents of St. Mark's Road and the surrounding streets. St. Mark's Road is a school street which we very much welcome, and we all volunteer our time to help enforce this. It's actually very challenging. This small length of street is used 24/7 as a cut-through to avoid the busier Ladbroke Grove. And as volunteers, we have been subject to verbal and even sometimes physical abuse by drivers unaware or in defiance of the school street restrictions. I would like to go on record to express my gratitude to Councillor Kamali and Ikram Tribak for assisting us with wardens and general support for this initiative. My neighbour, Mr. Bilal Gomari, who lives on St. Mark's Road, presented to you all last month and provided substantial evidence of the traffic-related issues that exist on St. Mark's Road. As already stated, as parent volunteers of this school street, we witness firsthand the challenges of allowing vehicles of all sizes to use this street as a cut-through to avoid Ladbroke Grove. We believe the street should be a permanent traffic-restricted street. However, the feedback from Councillor Kamali and his team is that this would not allow sufficient access for service vehicles. We believe a compromise would be to make St. Mark's Road a one-way street. We believe this would be greatly beneficial to the residents, the primary school, the estate, the Learning Disability Centre, and the public children's playground, which is on this very small street. I'm here today to request a full feasibility study to implement this one-way system on the street. We understand that there are some funding restrictions and challenges, so I'm pleased to inform you that we have secured preliminary NCIL funding for the amount Councillor Kamali quoted for this to go ahead. I'm here today to seek assurances that this feasibility study will be part of the Council's 2024 plans, and would also like to understand the next steps and timelines, please.
Councillor Kamali, please.
Shiraz, thank you for coming in. This is a topic that we've obviously debated a number of times here, but isn't one that's going to go away unless we come up with a solution. So I am really glad that NSIL is affording you the funding to come up with a feasibility study. That is the right first step. We have to assess the traffic on a normal day and check what it's like with a school street in operation. It's never easy changing flows of traffic, because you change something in one place, it causes an issue somewhere else. So we do have to be very conscious of what we're doing and what problem it is we're trying to solve. I saw the NSIL report go to the Executive Director just a few days ago, so it should be signed off imminently. I'm looking at Sue here to give a nod. There we go. So it should be happening very soon. What that will do is then release the funding to the transport officers to go ahead with the feasibility. They will work with consultants and their own data to make sure that we are assessing the traffic on a sort of a regular day, comparing it to a school street. And then from there, we'll have to look at what options are available to us, whether it's a timed closure, one way, all the things that we've been discussing. But we need to know the baseline before we make a big decision. But thank you.
Councillor Nlagi, would you like to respond for 2 minutes, please?
Good evening. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Charles, for coming and pursuing this issue of safety regarding the safety of our children who are using that part of the transport and that road. But I've observed myself in the morning where I've seen parents putting these barriers, try to implement the restriction which is on the signage, which is not clear. So I would like for our lead member to encourage the transport officer just to have a walk or drive through coming from Cromwell Crescent going into St. Mark's. The sign is not clear to the driver, so that's why I was watching in the corner drivers that are not aware of the signage that there is a restriction going left. So I would 100% encourage the proper feasibility study, but in the meantime to put a safety measure to help the parents to manage that these two corners in which they are putting yourself at risk from drivers. So I really appreciate the efforts the parents are doing, but we really need to put in place an additional safety measure not to put the parents at risk. So I really full support the feasibility study fully to encourage the safety of our schools, not just St. Thomas John's, but other schools like Avondale Park School, which I observe it's at a further risk than what's happening at St. Mark's. So thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Razak. I'm now going to read a question on behalf of a resident who wishes to remain anonymous. How will you address the increasing problem of electric and other bikes on pavements and the leaving about on these bikes and scooters randomly to restore pedestrian safety in the borough? Councillor Kamali, please.
Madam Mayor, I'm back again. Again, it's unfortunate the resident's not here, nor provided their name, so I don't know how I'll be able to respond to them separately, but perhaps governance can assist. They've touched upon, I think the three topics we've just had are sort of the top section of my inbox over the last few weeks. E-bikes are something that I know our residents are very conscious about. I should highlight at the start, though, that a huge number of our residents are using them to get around the borough and to get to work. Nearly 200,000 journeys were carried out in the month of October, so they are very well used, but they do present a problem to our residents. They are left on the pavements, they are left in the roads, they are overspilling the bays that we have provided for them, and it comes down to management. Our first solution was to get these bicycles off of the pavement so that those with mobility issues or disabilities had a free pavement to get around the borough. What that meant, of course, is that they had to go somewhere, and our solution to that was creating e-bike bays. We were one of the first boroughs in London to do this, and now Westminster and others are following our lead. But actually, it all comes down to the regulations that govern these bikes. It's one thing to get them off the pavements and into the bays, but we need legislation, either through government or through the Mayor of London, to bring about a bylaw across London that means we will have the powers to fine the operators or to remove the bikes and recharge the operators for that cost. They are a fantastic way of getting around London, but they need to be managed well, and the operators have to come on board with a good agreement with us and with the Mayor and all the other boroughs of London. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Benton to respond for 2 minutes, please.
Thank you. Well, this affects me every day. I find myself removing an average of 3 e-bikes a day, I would say conservatively speaking, from obstruction of management. I imagine we're all familiar. They take up bays, as Councillor Kamali has said, multiple bays spill into the pavement, and that's if they bother to park them at all, often just spread lengthways across. Now, the leaders here, Lime, are obviously going on a bit of a charm offensive at the moment with councillors, trying to meet with a lot of us through their PR companies. And this is, of course, I would imagine, not unconnected to they've recently reported significant profits, which is very unexpected. So a report that they've been citing claims improvements to accessibility for Londoners. But that report is, to my mind, methodologically dubious. It surveys an impressive number of service users and no one else. Not to mention it uses Lime's own internal figures and nothing that they've collected independently. And of course, many of those who are negatively affected, they're not using the bike, so they don't get a say. These are essentially a menace and emblematic of profit-seeking dressed up as a public good. And this has been a somewhat confused response from the council. First, we were told that we wouldn't be impounding bikes, like Westminster started to. And yes, in fact, that is incredibly difficult to enforce. And recently, we're told that might be on the cards. But look, who's going to do that? NSL are already stretched, and an immiserated workforce who, represented by GMB, have this year already carried out industrial action. If we can't look after the current workforce, how do we plan to expand their responsibilities? And this speaks to a foundational problem with private organisations providing services for public good. How do you incentivise a company like this, given carte blanche to operate in the borough, when their very business model allows for operating at a loss for years at a time? I'm sympathetic to the authorities of numerous towns across the world who have outright banned the private hire of e-bikes and scooters. My belief is that it is our responsibility to provide cheap, effective and environmentally sound modes of transport that are of benefit to all of our communities.
Councillor Benton, could you please bring it to a close?
Absolutely. Thank you. The only way to ensure this is to remove the profit motive and bring all of this in-house, along with those services currently contracted to outside providers, using our large reserves of money. I don't believe it's realistic, and our abdication of public services to the private sector
Thank you
goes
very
unaddressed.
much.
Thank you.
I would now like to invite Mariola Bonisha to ask a question. Apologies if I didn't get your name properly.
I'll be reading, okay? My language may be something problem. I speak German. English is my second language and Polish language. I'll be reading, yeah? I'm single parents. I live in Peabody Estate in Dalgano Gardens. I live 1 minute from Dalgano Trust. And I wish to ask the council why for these long years, 5 years, and in the estate, my son is 14 years, he won't play basketball or football, and the Dalgano Trust, they always have closed the pitch. You know, behind the Dalgano Trust, they have the pitch, and they is closed on the weekend. For example, when my son is, is free, he won't go use the basketball pitch or play the football, that is closed. And then twice or 3 times he going ask, and then the people in the office say there is no for you, and then they always, when another people coming and, from Sutton Way or some way, they always is close the pitch for the children. And the problem is, is shooting, yes, gang, yes, no safe the place, and the children, I know when he going around Dalgano or somewhere, the area Labrador is a little bit dangerous, shooting here, and they have something problem with the, teenager and drug and something like, I'm not allowed to, say you going out for my permission or something if you're not feeling safe. And I want to ask why they always, yes, for the weekend, when the children is not at school, they won't enjoy the football or something, is not allowed to go in. And not doing something, for example, activity on the summer. Last summer, they're not doing nothing for the summer fair, for the, for the park. They're not doing nothing for us, for Dalgano, for the children. I don't know why is something, the children is different. I don't know why. I won't ask. All people, Portobello, W11 or something, Kensington or Holland Park, there is children different, Dalgano is different. I'm not understand, no activity, no nothing for them. I won't ask you why is going like this, no fun for the children,
I will invite Councillor Will to respond to you. Councillor Will, please.
Thank you, Maria. And thank you for coming. I know it's never easy to come to full council and ask questions. And I'm always really sad when I hear that people are frightened for their children to go out and play. That's just... Yeah. No. So,
Ms. Bonuccia,
sorry.
would you please let Councillor Will respond? Thank you.
So I'm really sorry to hear that. That's what I'm trying to say. With regard to the Dalgano Trust pitch, I didn't know about that, and so I can't really give you an answer other than say we will happily raise it with them, why the children are given access. I don't know what the answer is. You mentioned the summer fair. That's something that's historically been arranged by the Friends of Little Wormwood Scrubs. I know they asked for funding from ward councillors. I'm told I refused it, but I'm sure Councillor Ali will be able to say something about that. So that's not really one, I'm afraid, that I can, that's down to your ward councillors who funded that historically. We did, however, the Council Sport Development Trust, we did have a smaller event in the park. We had a bouncy castle, donkey rides, probably a bit, I accept for your son, perhaps a little bit, not quite right, but there were other sports activities, and we had actually activity days in all our parks, including Little Wormwood Scrubs. And you may not be aware of this, but there's a wonderful guy called the Running Mayor. Every weekend he does a 2,000k family run in Little Wormwood Scrubs, and there is an outdoor gym there as well. So I think there are things, but you know, we're always happy to try and offer more activities. With regards to some of the issues about the Dalgano Trust you mentioned, it is completely separate to the council, but I'm very happy, as I say, to raise the issue about the pitch on your behalf.
Councillor Ali, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Mariola, for coming to the council meeting. Just head on to answer the question of the summer activities and why summer activities was not happening last year. It's a sad for my residents and Dalgano residents that it's not been happening last year, but we had summer activities all the years. Sadly, there was an issue with the local councillors, and now it's been resolved. Now I will be working with the lead member for communities to make sure that the funding will be available from now onwards, and to make sure that local community will benefit from. That is a promise that I will make sure that will be kept. On the second point of you mentioning the football pitch, I have inquired about it on your behalf, Dalgano Community Trust, and the response that I had from the Dalgano Community Trust is that obviously the football pitch comes under their arrangements, and they have the lease to manage, and the organization not just to manage but also repair and maintenance of that. They also told me that they do provide a lot of youth activities, including amateur boxing, as well as sessions for multiple days, from Sunday to Thursday. And I would like to know more about what else can be done for the young children at the weekend to be done, to be supported. And on that note, I used to enjoy when I was a little younger for football, so I will definitely understand the energy the boys need to burn, or girls for that matter, to make sure that they get the weekends on weekends off and they can play football. But it all comes back to the funding. And the council may say good things, but really they need to put their mouth where their money is. They need to put their money where their mouth is. And here it is, the figures. It costs about £165,000 to run youth provision from the Dalgano Community Trust. And what did the council provide? They only provided £35,000. The Dalgano Community Trust has been working on to raise £130,000 on their own. So I would like to work with the council leadership to get a chance to raise that money and open for that. And if the council can do that, we'll be happy to support. Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you, Ms. Bonuccia. Thank you. I would now like to invite Brian Stevens to ask a question. Brian Stevens, you have up to 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm here tonight to speak about antisocial behaviour in Earls Court. But before I get to the nub of my question, I think it's right for me to focus on some of the more positive things that have happened in the ward over the last year. The graffiti motion that was put forward by councillors North and Adurian has been a resounding success, for example. Only a year ago I raised about 70 graffiti reports to the council, and now every time I go around it's about 3. I think the testament to that success is a resident rang me, reported one to me, and by the time he'd gone to take a photo of it, it had already been cleaned up. So I think even the members opposite who have faced similar issues certainly in the Portobello area would hopefully agree with me that when they get a chance to speak, that's been a resounding success. We've also had other schemes in the ward which are sort of not necessarily related to antisocial behaviour, like the Hogarth Road scheme. Councillor Rendell has been also instrumental in pushing forward the business improvement district idea, which I look forward to seeing how moves forward by Councillor Taylor-Smith with the viability study. But a lot of these good things are somewhat undermined by, or overshadowed at least, by some of the flagrant antisocial behaviour issues that exist in the ward. And many residents can't see past that, unfortunately, and see all the good that has happened. There have been some initiatives by the council. For example, Councillor Will and the community safety team did a ward blitz at the end of last year, which was relatively successful. However, as inevitably, because it was unsustainable in terms of resourcing, we saw the same level of people coming back into the ward and causing problems again in the spring. But it did show that resourcing and a focus on it could help. But it's certainly not a silver bullet. We've also seen other sorts of proposals to tackle antisocial behaviour. Earlier this year, we saw a proposal from one of the councillors opposite via the BBC promoting and advocating drug safe rooms. Personally, and many of my neighbours, we were absolutely horrified about the idea. It is completely the opposite of what Earl's Court requires, and it would just simply create a magnet for further drug dealers to congregate in the area. So I would be grateful, as part of her reply, if the lead member would categorically state that the council will not be supporting drug safe rooms, and to reassure residents in Earl's Court who were flabbergasted at the suggestion from one of its own councillors. The Section 80 process announced earlier this year offered Earl's Court residents hope that the police would finally have some tools to help them address the ongoing issues of antisocial behaviour in the ward, which was really at the heart of the call to action initiated by the late Councillor Spalding. As we all know, this fell through due to legal precedent being set in Leeds, which unfortunately invalidated the request. As a member of the local Safer Neighbourhood panel, I advocated for the introduction of a public spaces protection order prior to the dismissal of the Section 80, because I felt it was important we had something that was more sustainable, not something that lasted for 3 months, but something that could last for 3 years. So I researched the solution across many councils across London, and I was pleasantly surprised to find that many of the elements of the Section 80 that was proposed by the police were already covered by restrictions in other councils across London. And I am grateful for Councillor Adurian for sharing the information with the lead member. But hopefully the lead member for community safety agrees with me that all of the statements provided to the police through that process can now support a public spaces protection order for Earl's Court Ward as a substitute, and can she commit to the introduction of such a scheme in the very near future? Thank you.
Councillor Addenbrooke, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you for coming this evening and for all you have done to support Councillor Durian and the local Conservative team in Earl's Court. I just want to reassure you that this council is committed to working with the police and other partners to tackle crime and antisocial behaviour across the borough. However, your questions tonight are specifically around Earl's Court, and whilst we were all disappointed that the police were unable to proceed with the Section 80, it is important to note that the evidence gathered has not been lost. Following the notification from the police, I asked officers to look at the process for introducing a public space protection order in Earl's Court to tackle the main issues raised by residents and businesses. Work has already started, and officers are currently evidence gathering using data from the police, our ward crest teams, residents and businesses, and relevant email correspondence we have received over the last 6 months, and I can tell you there is a lot of email correspondence. This is being reviewed by our legal department, and we hope to have this finalised by mid-December to enable us to go out to consultation for 6 weeks commencing in January. In the meantime, we are looking at the approach to enforcement and plans to counter possible displacement. Once the consultation has been concluded and has gone through governance, we would hope to be in a position to implement the PSPO by the beginning of April. You also mentioned safe rooms, and I just want to reassure you that the use of safe rooms is not supported by current evidence or policy, so there are currently no plans to implement them. Thank you.
Councillor Wade to respond. 2 minutes, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you for your question, Brian, and for coming this evening. You've raised a number of issues here. That said, it's taken some time before the Council finally acknowledged the concerns raised by residents about ASB and drug-related activities and the negativity it affected their lives. The call to action initiated by Councillor Spalding, which Hamish and myself spent some time in the preparation of, highlighted issues of resident and business concern, plus the petition signed by over 1,500 submitted to Felicity Buchan about shoplifting and ASB. The month-long police and council operation earlier this year showed short-term improvements but created, as you mentioned, displacement, and soon the well-known individuals returned. I'd like to thank every resident that has sent in an email or provided a statement, which indicates it covers the whole spectrum of people who live in Earl's Court. My concern is that although the police will be engaged to deliver a PSBO, they do not appear to be in charge. That lies with the council. I'm concerned about the resourcing to develop the strategy. The staffing levels in the community safety team are low. The length of time that the strategy would take to put in place, that you'd not be able to reverse the negativity and neglect of years in one short blitz. Significantly, what would the timeline be? What would the KPIs be? We're at a crucial point where several initiatives such as the Earl's Court local plan, shopfront guidelines are in preparation to restore a vitality lacking for several years in the area, and specifically about confidence, whether businesses or residents. So I really feel that everybody wants this, but we've got to get it right, it's got to be robust, and it's got to work. Thank you, Brian.
Thank you, Councillor Wade. Thank you, Mr. Stevens. I would now like to invite Jacob Ressi to ask a question. Mr. Ressi, you have up to 5 minutes.
Hello, thank you very much for letting me speak. So I'm here today to speak about our support of Israel. Indiscriminate punishment, war crimes of the gravest nature, a textbook case of genocide as defined by Israeli scholar. Why I myself have a background. My father, on my father's side, my family were killed during the Holocaust. And what I'm witnessing, what we're all witnessing, and the stories that I was told from my family about their experience, what I'm seeing now, I do not see any difference in those horrific stories that history. And what I'm seeing now, the treatment of the Palestinian people, I do not see a difference. And this, obviously, there's lots of things going on, but in the treatment to another human being, from one human being to another, I agree with Elizabeth Campbell in her comment that, in regards to the Ukraine war, that global events are significant here locally to us. It's hard to really, it's quite surreal to be here in our warm, comfy council the electric's working, the lights are working, it's warm, and somewhere there is a genocide. There is people being murdered, children being murdered, and it's like, as has been described, genocide is now become normalized in that it's just happening and we're not really responding appropriately. So the reason why I'm bringing it to the council is because in 2019 I witnessed councillors celebrating their victory of their government, their winning parliament. I know that councillors campaign, I know that you support and you won and you put in your government. So our government now is supporting what I believe to be, which is war crimes named as collective punishment, where we are seeing children dangling from buildings, families trapped underneath rubble, and there just is no justification for it. And councillors, we are talking about parking tickets, we're talking about graffiti, but you have campaigned and you have put in the government, and there's been silence, and it's not, you know, that's not acceptable. There has been silence, and again, when I came here in 2015 and spoke about the library campaign, we said that the decision had already been predetermined, that people voted aligned to their party. They did not vote, or they weren't able to speak freely. They spoke in line with their party. Today, we don't have an opposition.
Mr. Retty.
Have I gone past?
No, sorry to interrupt. Do you have a question to ask?
Yes,
Then,
yes.
Your time is running out.
Okay, so we do not have an opposition to this point. So I'm having here, this is to put to all of the council, acknowledge the seriousness of what this is about. That we've had one councillor become independent on the matter, and the question that I'm putting to you is that we want to call for an immediate ceasefire. There are councils that have voted for immediate ceasefire, and it's.
Mr. Retty, you will have to bring it to close very soon.
Okay, and I'm asking, and if you have, do they have the questions?
You could be very quick,
okay.
Please.
So I'm asking that you actually quit. If you can't do anything because of your leader's position, then quit.
Thank you, Mr. Retty.
This is genocide.
Thank you, Mr. Retty. May I, ladies and gentlemen, may I please remind you, ladies and gentlemen, I will not repeat again, you are most welcome to stay here, but please, let's have some civil behavior and respect for everyone. Thank you very much indeed. I am sorry, ladies and gentlemen, may I please remind you, this is a chamber for local government, local borough residential issues. I will be inviting, Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I will have to ask you to leave. If you cannot conduct a civil behavior, we will have to ask you to leave. I'm sorry, we have to carry on. We have many. I'm going to invite the leader of the council to respond to Mr. Retty's question. Thank you. Councillor Campbell, thank you so much.
Thank you. And thank you, Jacob, for coming. Thank you for your question. I think I'd just like to repeat what I said at the last council meeting, which was when I said that the attack launched by Hamas should be condemned in the strongest possible terms. And I also said that any response needed to be proportionate. Okay, and I also said that any response needed to be proportionate to protect civilians
Would you
from all sides.
Would you please not interrupt? Sorry. Sorry. This is a final warning. I will ask you, if I hear any more, you will have to leave the chamber. Sorry. Last chance. We either let the leader of the council speak, or you'll be asked politely to leave the chamber. What's it going to be? Thank you. Councillor Campbell, I apologise.
Okay. So let me just repeat. I also said that any response needed to be proportionate and to protect civilians from all sides. But the council, we have no influence over what happens in the Middle East. What we do have is we have influence over what happens here in our own communities. And so my focus is very much making sure that as a council, we're fostering an environment where all our residents feel safe and secure and supported. All of them. So, you know, I'm deeply sympathetic to the distress caused at a local level by the conflict on all sides, and I wrote to our faith leaders accordingly. I visited the mosque, I visited our synagogue, to hear firsthand the issues that both the synagogue and the mosque are facing, because they're both facing issues. And Al-Manar and Holland Park Synagogue, they've known each other for many years, and supported by the council, they're continuing to promote interfaith dialogue and understanding. And both are parts of our faith community partnership. And again, what we're trying to say is that we don't have influence on what happens in the Middle East. We have influence on what happens in our own communities. And I would ask our communities...
Please, may I remind you... Please. Again, can Councillor Campbell finish? Without any further interruptions, please. Please. We won't get... Again, may I please remind you, let the councillor finish. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Councillor Campbell.
So I'd just like to reiterate that what we want is to make sure that all our communities feel safe, supported, and looked after in this borough, because obviously a lot of our communities are finding things incredibly distressful at the moment. So what we need to do is actually lower the tone of our conversation and help all our communities, not exacerbate any divisions that people try and exacerbate. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Ali.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Jacob, for getting in touch with us. And may I begin with, sorry to hear about your loss of your family and the mentioning of your father's side through the Holocaust. Obviously, every loss of life is a disaster, and I hope that many people's lives will be saved and no one will advocate for war. Speaking of the issue of the ceasefire you've mentioned, and you've said also that there's no opposition to this, I respectfully disagree with you. We are the opposition, the principal opposition of this council, and we made our position very clear. And lately, we had a statement out as early as late as today, to make sure that people understand. We absolutely welcome, and in fact we follow Keir Starmer's position where we welcome the post. But what we want at the Labour Group, Kensington and Chelsea, is we voted for to make sure and get a permanent ceasefire in Gaza, where we will hopefully have no further deaths of life, and that is what we have done. Isn't that position clear? In fact, for the record, if I just may finish, I will definitely tell you, if you will listen to my speech further, you will be able to hear more about what position we stand. But I can tell you, we want both. We want this truce that we have to continue and to become a permanent ceasefire.
Councillor Ali,
Thank you.
So, may I please remind the audience, you are not achieving anything by interrupting the councillor. This is... Okay. Thank you, Mr. Retty. Now, I would now like to invite...
Just to finish off, Madam Mayor.
My apologies.
I understand the stress for the community going through, and we're here to make sure that the residents are being heard and heard loud and clear. And ultimately, this council, whether we have, as the leader of the council said, we do not have matters at international level. But what I understand is we can put pressure on those who are at international level. Perhaps we can lobby for the government, for the influence we may get, and to support this temporary truce to become a permanent ceasefire, so no losses of life in Gaza and in Jenin, in anywhere, in Palestine, in Israel, everywhere that we can get. And I think that would be the right thing to do. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Ali. I would now like to invite Moira Samuels to ask a question. You have 5 minutes.
Okay. We started the evening with a minute's silence for those who didn't lose their lives in a tragedy. They lost their lives in an atrocity, a violent atrocity that partly had to do with, as you all know, companies who put dangerous materials on that building. Now you'll see the connection that I'm making in a minute. The council committed, and I stand here as a resident, I sit here as a resident, impacted by that atrocity. The council committed to listen, to be more humane, to be compassionate. So I am speaking from that point of view, regardless of what you may say about what impact you think you have. 6,000 bombs were dropped on Gaza in a week. It's equivalent to 2 nuclear bombs. 6,000 children have died, 14,000 people have died in Gaza. So please, don't start telling us about the complexity of the issues. It is not complex. These are not two equal sides. This is a colonizer versus a colonized people. First, in the first instance, they don't have equivalent weapons. This is a people who have had to face a siege where they've had their electricity, their water, etc. cut off. So we need to have a perspective on this, and it also didn't start on the 7th of October, as everybody has indicated. So let's not try and rewrite history here, people. So I will cut to the chase, because my question is to the whole of this council, and you need to look to your moral obligation. Your moral obligation to this community, to North Kensington community, who's gone through the trauma and the pain of loss of homes in a violent way, and are now witnessing the loss of homes for communities that they have connections with, yet again with the bombing, perpetual bombing of weapons. So my question to you as a council is, in 2018, there was a Freedom of Information request that was made to this council. And in that Freedom of Information request, it was revealed that this council had spent in terms of its pensions and investments on BAE systems. All of these companies are implicated in the arms industry that are responsible for dropping bombs and killing innocent civilians. And we've already noted that they are war crimes. They've been noted. Collective punishment is a war crime. So my question to you as a council is, you spent in 2018 326,499 pounds on BAE systems. You spent, I'm not going to go through all the figures, on Raytheon, Airbus, Northrop Grumman, Lockheed Martin, and Honeywell. All of these companies, the money that was invested came to over £4,095,337. So have you informed the teachers, the TAs, your staff who work in this building and in all the council facilities that you are investing in the middle of a genocide this council's money on arms that are killing innocent people?
Councillor Thalasitis, please.
Thank you for your question. I'm happy to talk about the investment committee, and of course all the information about where we invest is available to the public, and indeed through freedom of information as you've described. I should say all of the managers through which the fund invests comply with the United Nations principles for responsible investment, and the investment committee is therefore reassured that its assets are generally invested responsibly. I can confirm that 3 of our 4 funds have no exposure to controversial weapons manufacturing, but our index tracker equities portfolio has 0.69% of the total portfolio where there is potential exposure. We also, the investment committee has chosen to invest in the listed portfolios on the basis of expert external advice received on strategic asset allocation and investment manager selection, and they have a fiduciary responsibility to ensure that they achieve optimal returns on their investments. The investment committee at the council is cross-party in terms of its representation, and therefore there is the opportunity for both sides of this chamber to respond. And this is the position that they have so far come to, and we are assured that on the basis it complies with the UN criteria I've just set out, that they're doing so in a responsible way and that they're achieving optimal returns for all of their shareholders.
Okay, Councillor Lowry. Would you, sorry, may I please, I understand the passion runs high. Please, can Councillor Lowry, sorry, Councillor Thalasitis has answered the question. Okay, that's the answer. Please, Councillor Thalasitis has answered the question, and Councillor, okay, that is a matter of opinion. Please proceed. Thank you so much. Councillor Lowry, please go ahead.
Moira, thank you very much for coming. You are asking specifically what can this council do to divest from the arms industry, so I'll tell you what can be done. So the investment committee, while they're responsible for overall asset allocation, we choose investment managers who go and execute their strategy, the council can and has got the power to take a principled political position and eliminate exposure to certain sectors and industries. I'll give you an example. After the Grenfell Tower fire, this council agreed it would never ever use Celotex, Arconic and Kingspan material. The investment committee then made the decision, and I strongly supported that, I was part of that decision, that to completely eliminate our equities exposure to Kingspan, Arconic and Celotex. So therefore the council does have some discretion to eliminate certain exposures. So what I want to happen is for a meeting of the pension board to happen. The pension board is where the actual employees who are members of the fund, who sit on, to happen, where they can discuss and take an opinion and vote on reducing or eliminating exposure to not only the arms sector but also potentially the fossil fuels industry. and polluting industries. So once that meeting happens, if there's a consensus from the members of the pension fund, the investment committee can then have a meeting and come to a principled position in support of the members. So that's the steps that the council can take if members of the pension fund want to eliminate exposure. I think the council just needs to call a meeting of the pension board to facilitate that.
Thank you, Councillor Lowry. Thank you, Ms Stevens. Thank you, Ms Stevens. Thank you. Thank you. Do members have any petitions to present? Okay. Oh, Councillor Dent-Code.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This petition, I just would like to add before I start that there was another petition put up before that the wording had to be changed, and so we got a little bit behind. But there were 700 signatures on the first one. This is residents demand all councillors of RBKC support an immediate and permanent ceasefire. And it was started by Mr. Jacob Retty, who we heard earlier. And the prayer is from Mr. Retty. I'm a lifelong resident of North Kensington, whose family on my father's side were killed during the Holocaust. I call for an end to Israel's indiscriminate punishment of Palestinian people. It is no longer a case of taking sides. It's now about enforcing international United Nations law, which called for an immediate ceasefire on 26th of October 2023. Indiscriminate punishment is a war crime, and it must stop now. Palestinians must be free from Israeli occupation. So residents of RBKC signing this petition demand the council put aside factional differences and supports an immediate and permanent ceasefire, and secondly, follow the example made by Westminster Council's ethical investments plan and divest pension funds away from weapons. And 388 signatures come with that petition. Thank you.
I now invite the Leader of the Council to address the meeting for up to 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Well, as we round off 2023, it feels like a real turning point in our efforts to improve and to make good on our promises and commitments laid out since I became leader and in the wake of the Grenfell tragedy. Our second council plan was launched in March, accepting the challenge to become the best council we can be, to work hard every day for a borough that is greener, safer, fairer. And time has flown by, and I can look to my colleagues and say, thank you for the hard work, day in and day out, to make this borough a better place. And in just a few months, we have achieved... Madam Mayor, can I suggest you abandon the meeting until we've speak freely?
This is the first warning. I really do not want to adjourn this meeting, but we have business to do and we have people we need to hear from. This is your second warning. This is your second warning. I won't repeat myself. Thank you. Thank you. Councillor Campbell, please do carry on. Apologies.
So, for the second time, I'd just like to remind everyone that in just a few months, we've achieved a 5-star rating for health and safety from the British Safety Council, completed new award-winning social homes, completed work at Hewer Street with homes available to key workers, some of the most important roles in society. And Madam Mayor, we focused on the practical commitments in our council plan, doing the things taxpayers want and pay for, what a council should be doing. We have tackled landlords renting out poor homes, helped Portobello Road to win the Great British Markets Award, secured outstanding status for half of our schools, placing this borough amongst the highest performing in the country. We've tackled people who litter our street, doubling the number of the fixed penalties so far in 2023 to more than the entirety of the previous 3 years. Madam Mayor, we've invested in retrofitting schools at Bevington and Avondale Park. We've worked with 33 local organisations to support over 2,500 children, contributing to 19,000 free school meals in just 6 weeks over the summer holidays. We have new playgrounds at Avondale, Kensington Memorial and Wiltshire Close. We've secured green flag status for our parks. We've adopted our local plan with changes to planning policy to make green choices safer. We've maintained twice-weekly bin collections and recycling rates and started planting 400 new trees in the borough. And, Madam Mayor, we are busy establishing one of London's first eco-friendly neighbourhoods at Notting Dale, putting in place a greener fleet, providing more school streets to improve air quality around schools. Madam Mayor, forgive me, I need to go on. We have made improvements to tackle flooding, cracked down on noise nuisance and antisocial behaviour, embarked on a ward-by-ward cleansing blitz. And, Madam Mayor, we've cleaned more graffiti in the last 6 months than in the previous 2 years combined. Yeah. So, thank you. And our work to create amazing spaces. Madam Mayor, our work to create amazing spaces in this ward still continues.
Okay.
We have seen a public realm revolution, Madam Mayor, in this borough, with improvements to Notting Hill Gate, Earls Court Road, Gloucester Road, Portobello Road, Sloane Street, Bute Street, and Chelsea Green. And our Leighton House refurbishment is complete, award-winning, and sealed with an approval from His Majesty the King. Thank you. And finally, Madam Mayor, finally, we have... Well,
okay.
Why? All these improvements.
This
that
is
our
the final
taxpayers
warning.
wanted paid for.
We need to speak about many other issues, and you're depriving people who need to hear this. Do you really want this? Please, let's respect. You're most welcome to stay and sit out through the whole meeting. But please, I beg you, can we just have some civil order? This is not getting us anywhere. I'm sorry. But may I please respectfully ask all of you just to have some decorum and let's carry on with the meeting. It's not fair on everyone. So please be seated. Just let's be calm and finish this evening's business. Thank you all for your collaboration. Councillor Campbell, please do continue.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So we've achieved all these things, and at the same time, we held council tax down in April and gave back money to people who really needed it and supported people on the cost of living. All of that, what I've said, we have achieved in 1 year. But we're not complacent, and we continue to look forwards. And 2024 will be important for so many reasons, not only to the council but to our communities, including the Grenfell Inquiry final report. And I'll speak more about these things and our own challenges with net zero and building homes in my update in the new year. But I can say this: we will continue to look at ourselves with objectivity, with honesty and with energy to become the best we can. And we know not everyone gets the answers that they want or the services that they deserve, and we make mistakes. But the culture of this council continues to change. And before I sign off, Madam Mayor, I'd just like to say thank you to one of our longest serving and most dedicated officers. Sue Harris leaves us in the next few weeks after overseeing a whole huge array of services. And I'd just like to put on the record that she is a force of nature, endlessly positive, and typifies the kind of can-do attitude we want here in Kensington and Chelsea. And I'm sure we all wish her the very best for the future. Thank you, Sue. Thank you.
Thank you. Now I invite Councillor Ali to respond, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. As you're well aware of, and as you have heard the residents who are here this evening, the war in Gaza between Israel and Hamas has been impacting our communities in Kensington and Chelsea, in London and across the country. We are horrified by the unfolding humanitarian catastrophe in Gaza, and international law and human rights must always be upheld. The sanctity of life protected for all. There is no justification for murdering innocent civilians. We are shocked by the loss of thousands of innocent civilians in Gaza. This council, Madam Mayor, has condemned the last month when Israel was attacked by Hamas on the 7th of October and resulted in the death and the kidnapping of innocent Israeli civilians who have been hostage. However, there is no justification for collective punishment for innocent civilians who have been denied the basic human necessities such as food, water, and fuel. We have now an extended pause, and therefore must be used immediately for aid and food, water, and medicine to widely and safely distributed to Gaza, and the hospitals function so that lives can be saved in Gaza and in Palestine throughout. I also call for this council leadership and the UK government to use all its influence and resource to extend the temporary truce that we have now into a permanent ceasefire for humanitarian ground, and hopefully get all the remaining hostages to be released. Madam Mayor, the only solution we've been talking about between Israel and Palestine, and now between the war in Gaza, the only way will be two-state solution to get Israelis and Palestine live peace side by side. Our communities in Kensington and Chelsea, of all faiths and none, have been known and have a long and proud history of coming together when they see human suffering, and this is exactly what we see this evening. Madam Mayor, at this month of Islamophobia awareness, we have reports indicating that there has been sharp Islamophobia and anti-Semitism in the borough and as well as across London. We must not allow these strategic events to divide us that's happening in the Middle East, and to make sure that our community come together and work for peace here at home and abroad where we can. Madam Mayor, it's important to, when we speak about safety, to remember the councillors at this chamber now sitting has now been verbally abused by residents who feel so passionate about the war and they want to stop. But that does not give them the right to verbally abuse our councillors, and that we have reported to the police, and the police are supporting them. Madam Mayor, the cost of living crisis has been impacting our residents throughout the years, and it started we did.
May I please remind you?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just to repeat what I have said before, we have a temporary truce, and we want it to be a full and permanent ceasefire. If isn't that clear, I don't know what else can be clear for our residents. That is exactly what we come on, and that's what we want. Madam Mayor, this council is trying to be proud of itself, but the cost of living crisis has been ongoing at this borough, and what we want to do is what the council is doing to support our residents. As you're well aware of, the energy prices will be rising next year, the food is also rising, and the low-income household of our borough has been impacted the most. I would like to know what the council leadership is doing about this and the ways to support, and if the support available to our residents has been well advertised so that we know the cost of living crisis, that our residents are getting all the support. Madam Mayor, as you're well aware of, 1.5 million residents in London only are struggling to afford to get food every day. and 400,000 of them are children, and some of them are living in our borough, who cannot guarantee the next day meal. Food security and the food bank uses in our borough is worrying. No residents in Kensington and Chelsea should rely on a food bank, and we would like to see our residents getting well-paid jobs and to get locally well-paid jobs, and we will be more than happy to support and work with the leadership to make sure the local jobs are created for the local people. And speaking of a food bank, Madam Mayor, Delgado Trust Food Bank is now, has now running a live campaign, which is called Big Gift Campaign. It's now live, and it will remain live until the 5th of December. So I would like to ask everyone who can support the Big Gift Christmas Challenge and to support the trust to reach the £30,000 for the Christmas, so that we can support the local communities who are in need of support. And finally, Madam Mayor, I wish to thank all the volunteers and the community workers who work at the food banks in Kensington and Chelsea and beyond. As we are well aware of, I've been trying to get ready for half marathon to run and to raise money for the charity that you have chosen. So I hope the Felix charity, and I hope the leader and the deputy leader of the council will join me for that race, so that we can finally do something together on good and support our local charities, so that we will see no one in the line of that. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ali. I very much appreciate that. Thank you. Ladies in the back, would you like some water? Would you like to sit down? Would you like... In accordance with the standing orders, I rule that the order of business shall, as printed in the agenda. There are no matters for the council to consider. Item 10, I now invite Councillor Kim Taylor-Smith to propose the reception of the report from the Administration Committee, page 23 of the agenda pack, and Councillor Thalasitis to second. Councillor Taylor-Smith, please.
I'm pleased to propose, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Thalasitis?
I'm pleased to second.
Okay. Oops. Thalasitis. Oh, sorry, Taylor-Smith, sorry.
Yeah, no, I've just a couple of words to say. First of all, to thank Councillor Ali for his challenge on the marathon, and if I'm allowed to bring my scooter, I'll be there alongside you. So the Administration Committee looked at a range of proposals relating to the Planning Committee and delegation to planning officers, and you'll see in the attached report there are references to that delegation, but the references in Part 7 was discussed by the Admin Committee, and we very much listened to the views of the Kensington Society, who had issues in terms of what those proposals meant. And so it was agreed by the committee that we would defer most of the proposals to allow for a comprehensive consultation and contribution from our community groups about those changes. So there is actually only one change tonight, which is actually quite a sensible one, which is effectively to help and ensure the Planning Committee can make decisions in a timely manner without overburdening the current pool of members, which is currently 5, and the recommendation which we agreed at the committee was to increase that pool from 5 to 10 for the reasons that have been set out into the report. No further comments. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor. Thank you, Madam Mayor. When I joined the council in 2018, that was the very same year where the council decided to reduce the number of members on the planning committee by more than half. I think it used to be 12, then it was reduced to 5. So if Councillor Taylor-Smith is acknowledged as an issue with only 5 members being on the committee, then why was it reduced in the first place? I think every voluntary sector organisation and the Kensington Society objected to reduce the number of councillors on the committee because you reduce transparency, you reduce the number of residents who are represented on that committee, you have only 1 Labour councillor out of 5. So we have to, it begs the question, why on earth you made that decision in the first place? And now you're realising you don't have enough people. So I would love a further explanation from the lead member as to the rationale behind the structure of the committee as it stands.
Shall I sum up?
Please do. Does anybody else want to speak? No, Councillor Taylor-Smith, please go ahead.
So we don't want an overburden on 5 members on the number of committee meetings we have, so I can certainly say it's a very sensible thing to put it back up to 10. Why it was moved down in the first place, I don't know. As far as the ratio is concerned, of those 10, there will be 7 Conservatives and 3 Labour councillors on that pool of 10 people. So it's more than a representation of the percentage I think that you currently have within the chamber. But I don't know if the lead member for involved in planning knows why it was reduced in the first place. I can certainly find out and give you a written answer. Thank you.
Thank you. Does the Council agree with the recommendation to increase the size of the Planning Committee pool as set out in the paragraph 2.1 on page 23 of the main agenda pack? The recommendation is approved. Yeah. Matters referred to the Council by scrutiny committees. There are no matters for the Council to consider. Questions asked of the lead member under Standing Order 22. I have received notice of 9 questions to lead members. We have only 30 minutes. So may I advise everyone to exercise, to be concise and to avoid detailed introductions of explanations. May I remind members that in accordance with standing orders, any supplementary questions must be matters that are within the remit of the Council's executive. I now invite Councillor Arian Arieti to ask a question to Councillor Johnny Thalasitis.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. As we all know, due to the recent inflation, due to the recent wars happening across the world and coronavirus global meltdown, and with many economic factors, cost of living has been rising. People have been struggling to live their lives as normal. As a council, we have a duty of care for vulnerable and struggling residents. Although I'm pleased with the support we have been giving since last year, I'm here to ask the lead member for finance to comment on the council plan to continue supporting residents affected by rising cost of living. Thank you.
Councillor Thalasitis, please.
Thank you. Can I thank Councillor Oretti for his question and for his laser-like focus on the issues that matter to local people. As he correctly identifies, and so has Councillor Cameron and Councillor Ali, the cost of living is one of the major things that's still affecting all of our residents. And the Council has a very good record of help that it's been giving over the past 18 months in particular. As we've noted, we froze council tax, we delivered a cost of living rebate to households in Band A to D last year, and we've also signposted to external help, including distributing government grants. I can confirm that we'll continue doing all the latter of those things in terms of external grant distribution and signposting information. I can also confirm tonight that we will be presenting more detailed options for a cost of living support package in the next financial year at the OSC next week. I'm very keen to have scrutiny's input and the input from our wider community. And I'm very much hopeful that this will be something that can be targeted at absolute deprivation in the borough. We know that people are finding it difficult and we want to help those who most need it. So we are absolutely seized of the mission and we will be rolling out more plans over the coming weeks and months.
Thank you. Councillor Arieti, do you have a supplementary question?
Yeah, I just welcome the support from the lead member of finance, Madam Mayor, and with that, you know, I would extend my support as well, and I hope all councillors would agree with that. Thank you.
Councillor Thalasitis, anything to say? No. I now invite Councillor Bakhtir to ask a question to Councillor Sof McVeigh. Councillor Bakhtir.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. What are the rules for parking in council estates? We have seen a big drop of parking control at Henry Dickens Court affected by the renovations. The courtyard should be used for deliveries, drop-offs, and pickups. Residents noticed that disabled badge holders and those who are working on the estate renovation project had been parking permanently. Are disabled badge holders allowed to park in the courtyards permanently? Does that apply to all disabled badge holders and everywhere in the council estates? Thank you.
Councillor McVeigh.
Thank you, Councillor Bakhtiar. So parking on a council estates is managed separately to our on-street parking wardens, and estates can choose to implement parking controls. And pretty much almost all of our estates in the borough have decided to implement controls. And for estates with parking restrictions, we employ a contractor, NSL, to enforce against vehicles who are parking illegally. So specifically on Henry Dickens estate, and I understand obviously because there's been so much major work going on there, I can understand your concerns. But just to reassure, I got some figures that over the last month, the contractors have carried out 76 visits and 58 vehicles were logged, and then 31 fines were issued. So that's pretty much one a day. So they are cracking down on the vehicles that should not be parked there. And we have asked them to increase their inspections on this, and particularly on other estates when we're doing major works as well, because I think that's going to be a continuing picture. And specifically then about residents, about the disabled permit you asked about. They do have to display their blue and purple badge, and they should be parked in a hard stand pay or designated disabled bay. And I'm very happy to follow this up with you later about specifically, because if you think that's being used elsewhere, because they shouldn't be parked just within the courtyard. All right, but happy to follow up later, Mo. Thank you.
A supplementary question, Madam Mayor.
Yes, please go ahead.
Yes. Henry Dickens Court is under renovation, been so nearly a year now. And residents were promised that after each block was finished, there will be a proper cleanup, deep clean. And residents noticed that the caretakers are in charge of that, who are paid by the residents and the leaseholders. Is this the case? And the state of the deep clean is very bad. May I invite officers to come and I show them what I mean? Could we do that, please? Thank you.
Councillor McVeigh, would you like to respond?
I was just nodding away and saying yes, and I will look into that. Thanks, Mo. And the builders should be clearing up after their own work, definitely. And I'll come and have a walk around with you.
Thank you, Councillor McVeigh. I'm just going to adjourn the meeting for 5 minutes, and I till further notice. Yes, thank you.
So we'll reconvene at 5.
What's the time? What's the time? Okay. We will reconvene shortly. Ladies and gentlemen, may I please remind you all that you are most welcome to stay, but this is a firm request. Please be seated throughout the meeting. If anybody stands up, I'm afraid I will have to adjourn the meeting, which is really not fair on people who really want to get the business done. So please respect this. If you would like any water, do ask. We can provide you with water. But may I, lady on the left-hand side, could you please take a seat? No, because they're staff. Please, this is my chamber. Do not dictate to me. Could you please sit on a chair? I will not proceed till you sit on a chair. No interruptions, no standing up, please. Just respect everyone. If you need, as I said, if you need some water, please do ask. I'm very grateful. Thank you so much, and let's proceed. I now invite Councillor Dr. Mona Ahmed to ask a question to Councillor Elizabeth Campbell. Councillor Ahmed.
Thank you. Madam Mayor, I'm unlikely to need the full 5 minutes, but I would ask that for the time that I am speaking that I'm not interrupted, please, and that I be allowed to finish. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So, at the last full council meeting, there was rightly widespread condemnation of the events on October 7th, which resulted in the tragic killing of 1,200 Israeli citizens. Since then, however, Israeli forces have embarked on a brutal campaign of collective punishment, dropping 25,000 tons of explosives on Gaza, with the emphasis, in the words of the Israeli Defense Minister, being on damage, not accuracy, along with starving the population of food, water and electricity, and engaging in what the United Nations has described as clear violations of international law, including the use of prohibited weapons such as white phosphorus, as verified by Human Rights Watch. The result has been an unparalleled humanitarian catastrophe in Gaza. 14,854 people have been killed, with well over half being women and children. The UN Relief Agency reports on average that 1 child has been killed and 2 injured every 10 minutes since October the 7th in Gaza. Even a conservative estimate of the reported casualties figures show that the number of women and children killed is more than double the number killed in Ukraine in 2 years. In the words of Craig Mokiba, the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights, this current, in quotes, wholesale slaughter of the Palestinian people is a textbook case of genocide. A genocide is unfolding, and whether we like it or not, this council does need to take a clear position. My question, and that of many in the community, Arabs and non-Arabs alike, Muslims and non-Muslims alike, because this is not a religious question. Will the council leadership condemn these atrocities and join the calls of several councils across the country, including Oxford and Gloucester City yesterday, who voted unanimously in favour of a ceasefire, along with the mayors of London and Manchester, who've also called for an immediate ceasefire? What is also very local, so local that it's up the street, in fact, are the comments made by our neighbour, the Israeli ambassador, Tzipi Utevli, including her dehumanizing language of Palestinian people. Will this council reject these comments where she likened Palestinians in an interview to Nazis, as well as her blatant disregard to basic humanitarian principles when it comes to Palestinians, in claiming that there was no humanitarian crisis in Gaza? This crisis has also caused significant psychological distress to many people in the community. Residents have told me they spend sleepless nights ruminating on the relentless images of cruelty and suffering that we're witnessing. Given the significant Arab and Muslim communities in the borough, the second largest Arab community in Greater London, in fact, could the leader of the council please explain what the administration is doing to alleviate the mental distress being caused to local people of all backgrounds and faiths by the current conflict, and what she's doing to promote community cohesion? Lastly, what steps will the Council leadership take to tackle the rise in anti-Semitism and the rise in Islamophobia and the divisive language and smears seeking to paint anyone expressing solidarity with Palestinians and those who are calling for a ceasefire as terrorist sympathizing hate marchers? This is just language designed to divide us. In addressing this, I want to draw her attention to a letter that she wrote to the community in February last year in the context of the Ukraine war. The leader of the council wrote, "It would be wrong of us to assume that all Russians support the actions of one man and his army. Russians are also taking to the streets in protest at this invasion. It would be wrong for this council to make those people feel marginalized here in our own borough. Will the same sentiments be extended to the Arab and Muslim communities being smeared again as terrorist sympathizers for supporting a ceasefire and justice for Palestinians?" In the same letter about the war in Ukraine, the leader wrote, "We have made the area outside the town hall available to faith groups should they wish to hold peaceful vigils, prayers, and bring communities together. I want to know if the same invite is being extended to those wishing to express their grief and sorrow for what's happening in Gaza." Thank you.
Councillor Campbell, please. Okay. Ladies,
excuse me, could
sorry,
I just speak?
Sorry, you have been warned. Could you, sorry, okay, could you please, security guards, could you please remove those ladies? Right. We will have to adjourn, we are adjourning the meeting. Could we please ask the ladies to leave? Thank you. You are not helping your cause. This is, I am sorry, please. Sorry, you are in my chamber. We have rules, we have regulations. I would not come into your house and behave like this. So please respect, please respect everyone. We are all trying to do a job here, so thank you so much. Councillor Campbell. Okay.
Thank you,
Okay.
so I can actually respond to Mona, because I think she asked very good questions, and thank you for the tone in which you asked them as well. In response to what you're talking about, what the council's trying to do to alleviate the mental distress, and there is huge mental distress being caused to local people, and what we're doing to promote community cohesion. Firstly, as I said at the last council meeting, I'm really deeply sympathetic to the distress being caused at a local level by the conflict on all sides. And I've said I would write, and I did, to local faith leaders accordingly. I went in person to visit the mosque and to our synagogue to hear from them what issues that they're facing within the wider community. And as I said previously, they've known each other for many years, and they have been supported by the council, and they continue to promote dialogue and understanding, because, Mona, as you said, what we want is community cohesion in the face of, great troubles and great conflicts. So can I just finish, please? Because I know that you want to hear what I have to say, and I know then you do want to go home. So if you look at the mosque and you look at Al-Manar, they're both leading members of our Faith Communities Partnership. And at the last meeting, when I was there, together with faith leaders, and not just Muslims or Jews, but Christians and Sikhs too, we began with a minute's silence to remember all of those who are caught up in that conflict. And to your point about vigils, I think there is an interfaith vigil that they pray for peace. Sorry, can I just finish? every Sunday. So that is certainly something we could look into. At the meeting of our Prevent Advisory Group, we held one specifically to talk about the conflict and about how individuals and how people of differing faiths could then respond and try to find grounds for mutual understanding. And I would say that the meeting was very honest, and if it's honest, therefore it's challenging, but it was positive. Our community safety, can I finish, please? Can I just finish? You can carry on talking, or you can listen to me to talk, but if you carry on talking, I can't. Thank you. So our community safety and victim support team have been working incredibly hard to raise awareness of what you were saying, Mona, of hate crime, be that anti-Semitic or be that Islamophobic, and the support that we can offer. And our street enforcement team has also been working incredibly closely with the police to have patrols on streets where people are feeling nervous, etc., and offer reassurance. And finally, we've been very quick to remove offensive graffiti. So I'd just like to end by saying all we can do here in this borough, within our power, to promote community cohesion and alleviate really the terrible mental suffering of people, we will do. Thank you.
Ladies, may I please, ladies, may I please remind you, sorry, sorry, there is a procedure. I'm, okay, so, right, please. You are not listening. Okay, there's a procedure here. Can we please ask Councillor Ahmed if she has a supplementary question? Ladies, please sit down. Thank you.
Yeah, I just want to reiterate again, this is not a Muslim question. I appreciate the fact that you attended the El Manar Mosque, but it's not a Muslim question. Saint Porphyrius Church, a sanctuary for both Christians and Muslims, and believed to be the world's third oldest church on the planet, was bombed on the 20th of October with at least 18 Christian Palestinians killed. The oldest Christian communities on the planet are being wiped out. You talk about both sides, but for every one Israeli life taken on October the 7th, more than 10 Palestinians have been killed. This isn't a both sides question. It's apartheid in death as there is apartheid in life if we can't mourn their deaths just as vocally and unambiguously. We should be able to just call it what it is. And the fact that you have not been willing to do that is what answers the question.
Thank you, Councillor Campbell. Would you like to respond? Sorry, ladies, ladies, please sit down. Ladies.
The mayor, they need to leave.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Could you please ask them to leave? Could you please ask them to leave?
I think you should end the meeting. It's just not productive.
Could you... Thank you all for coming. Could you please kindly leave? Thank you so much. Thank you for coming.
I want to say something nice. I was going to say something nice.
I now... Okay. Would you like to respond? No. Okay. No, I'm going to carry on, yes. Could you please leave? Councillor Campbell has already responded. Thank you. Could... I now invite Councillor Adurian to ask his question. Yes, because I read. The next one is next one is not that. So, Councillor Durian, go for it. I think your microphone might be turned off.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. If I may ask the lead member for communities.
Could you please leave? Thank you, thank you. Thank you, please leave. Thank you. Thank you.
Yes, quite indeed.
Why don't you just stop that? What am I doing here? Right? Councillor Durian, please carry on.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll try to repeat the question again. Yes, so I'd like to ask the lead member for communities and community safety what progress is being made towards putting in place a public spaces protection order at PSPO in Earls Court as a more long-term alternative to the Section 80 order pursued over the summer by the police, but which could not proceed due to changes in case law. A PSPO with a full set of prohibitions, especially on drug paraphernalia, will give the police an additional mandate to crack down on incidents of public drug abuse and intimidating behaviour and secure convictions in court. Could she please share some potential timelines and when we might expect any announcements? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Durian. As you heard earlier, we have started the process of putting a PSPO in place in Earls Court, and officers have already commenced evidence gathering. This data is being reviewed by our legal department, and we hope to have the final list of behaviours to be included in the PSPO finalised by mid-December. This will enable us to go to consultation for 6 weeks commencing in January, and whilst I cannot give you the exact wording, one of the behaviours to be included will be around drug taking and dealing, including possession of drug-taking paraphernalia. As mentioned earlier, we will go out to consultation in January for 6 weeks, and then subject to governance, we hope to be in a position to introduce the PSPO in Earls Court on the 1st of April, and I really do hope that's not a joke. Once the conditions have been finalised and the timeline firmed up, I will of course ensure you are fully briefed, and your fellow councillors. Thank you.
Councillor Durian, do you have a supplementary question?
No supplementary question. Just thank you to the lead member, and please do keep ward councillors informed. Thank you.
Thank you. Now I'll go back to this one. Oh, we do, okay. I now invite Councillor Eva Jedut to ask a question to Councillor Sarah Addenbrook.
Thank you very much. I would like to use my 5 minutes. I wasn't well, so bear with me. I am still struggling with breathing. Every year, Christmas brings good news of faith, hope, love. When 2.6 billion people gather together with their families around Christmas table to celebrate the birth of Jesus Christ. On this special occasion, our thoughts are with every child in the UK. Charity starts at home, and it spreads through generosity globally. We will remember in our prayers those children of Yemen, Palestine, Israel, Ukraine, Sudan, Venezuela, and other countries where humanitarian crises are man-made due to armed conflicts. We will pray for those mothers and fathers asking God for peace. Around 52% of Dalgano residents identify as Christians. It is over 3,600 residents who look forward to this year's festivities. Those who do not follow Christianity also see Christmas as a national event with the King's speech on a Christmas day. 26% of Dalgano residents suffer from long, limiting mobility illnesses. The City Living Fund, Local Life Fund, is a community project to help residents to improve their local area, to make it better, greener, nicer to live, to get together with others, to eliminate isolation, maybe language barrier to learn from each other about tolerance, about truthfulness and good manners towards each other and respect. This is to build strong, diverse community. The funding is out there. Dalgano, as you can see, from your own reports available on website, Dalgano profile, it's impoverished area. It is the third highest percentage of children under 19 living in the low-income family households. Even in this context, multiple projects have been blocked in Dalgano. Some include funding for Christmas panto for 100 children with goodie bags, second time in a row, so last year and this year. A project for women football in this post-Grenfell community blocked as well. Money were not provided under this funding for summer club for 80 children from different backgrounds and different faiths because they were just simply refused or not answered or someone was not available to pick up the email. We believe in charity that starts at home, in our community, and then stretches out to others. We teach our children how to be generous in our communities and how to treat everybody truthfully with respect. Another project which Dalgano residents have been very upset, it's a greening of Canosside Sports Centre, which is located by the most polluted spot in Dalgano, which is mega big car park by Sainsbury's. We have in Dalgano asthma cases, the biggest in the whole borough, in children under 16. This is appalling. Dalgano cannot enjoy Fun Day in Little Scraps this year due to blocking funding. Among such activities during this Fun Day for children from different backgrounds, there was a face painting, science table, playing with farm animals, there were donkey rides. And some residents mentioned to me, and I cannot comment on it, well, maybe some people think donkeys are haram, and we don't have them in Dalgano. I cannot comment on this is one of residents, so I can refer to resident, and I am happy to give email address, and someone can respond to it. So now residents wonder why good projects have been denied funding. Young, talented residents in Dalgano want to use this money to green on the council-owned estates, to produce little sats, little ponds to really improve air quality. They want to go during the carnival outside London to really help with elderly, to remove them during the carnival because of the noise and just crowding. Now, question is, can the lead member for communities explain why saved, unspent, city living local life fund, which roll over after these years. This is a question why you have to remove the funding which is rolled over all these years. I had last year £44,000. You decided that North Kensington is not austerity place anymore, and you took it away. So first of all, I cannot spend it because some of the blocks did, and obviously you take over whatever is left behind. So now question is,
Councillor
I would
Jed,
understand that the
Councillor
current...
Jed, could you please
Yeah,
bring it to a
point of
close?
order, please.
So are we to understand...
Madam Mayor, point of order.
Councillor
please.
Jed, as we've had a quite stressful evening, can Councillor Edinburgh respond to that, please?
Just literally to
Thank you.
Thank you,
Madam Mayor. May I just ask a point of order which will give Councillor Addenbrook time to think of her answer to the questions? Could you perhaps, Madam Mayor, remind members, and it applies to both previous independents who've asked questions, but we make allowances for the first one in the circumstances, that members are meant to read out the question that's on the order paper only, and then the lead member replies to the question that's on the order paper, and then the member makes a supplementary question if they wish to, and the lead member answers it. That's the procedure. It's not a 5-minute speech, and it might be helpful, Madam Mayor. Otherwise, we'll be here all night with the questions.
Well, I would like to complete my question. Since Mona was allowed 5 minutes, I really would like to say one thing. Are we to understand...
Okay.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Jed, Councillor
Thank you,
Adinbrook,
Madam
please
Mayor.
go ahead.
We did actually finally get to the question. It was printed in the agenda. So, thank you, Councillor
I haven't
Jeddah.
finished. I wanted to ask the question.
I'm sorry. You've had your time. Your question is in the agenda, and I'm going to respond to that. I'm going to refer you back to Councillor McVeigh's email of the 15th of March 2023, which clearly outlines the reason for the change in funding for 2-member and 3-member wards for 23-24, and the ending of the rollover of unspent city living local life at the end of the last financial year. This change has ensured the sustainability of the programme for the coming years, which we know residents and councillors value. The advice on the City Living local website is clear that the funding helps projects get started by contributing to small events or to act as a match funding from other sources. Whilst I've not seen the data you mentioned concerning asthma cases in Dalgarno ward, City Living local life funding is for more community-focused events rather than tackling health conditions. And I'm sure my colleague, the lead member for Adult Social Care and Public Health, would be happy to discuss any thoughts you have on how to tackle asthma cases in your ward. And I agree with you on the need for greening of our council-owned estates, and would like to direct you to the fantastic work that both the lead member for housing and the lead member for finance, customer services and net zero are doing to ensure that not only is the funding adequate, but it's also targeted. Delivering a greener borough is one of the 3 key priorities of our council plan, and we are committed to achieving this goal. Thank you.
Councillor Jed, do you have a supplementary question?
I am fully aware that city living can be used for air quality. Our question is, I have someone who blocks the funding and you take away the funding. Do you play together, left and right now, in one team against the residents? Because I don't have a single spending now done. It's £21,000 sitting there. I have application after application coming my way and I cannot go forward exactly for improving air quality. It's not enough £21,000.
Thank you. Councillor Adinbrook, would you like to respond?
So, thank you, Councillor Jeddah. I will send you the email of the 15th of March, but just one issue that we have is that in some wards, and your ward is one of them, the 2 councillors cannot agree on funding. So we are doing a light touch review of city living. Could you let me finish? I've had to listen to you.
Councillor
I'm sorry, I just said, could you let me
please
finish? We are doing a light touch review, and this is one of the issues we're going to address, because clearly there is an issue, and we do need to sort it out. Thank you.
Thank you. Now I invite Councillor Wade to ask a question of Councillor Soft McWay. Councillor Wade, my apologies, I totally skipped you.
I know this happens all the time. It's okay.
Well, thank you for being so understanding. Thank you.
We're quite robust. Anyway, given the recent sales of housing association properties in the borough, what steps is the lead member for housing management, housing safety and building new homes taking to prevent further RP sales?
Councillor McVeigh.
Thank you, Councillor Wade, and thank you for sticking to your question. That is helpful because I have a reply for you. We do work very closely with our registered providers. And as you say, it's very important to have good relations with them, not just because we rely on them for our nominations right, but also for the upkeep of all their buildings. And I do, to be honest, think we do need to do a bit more work on this, on how we as a council work with our registered providers. That's something I'm prioritising. And I would like to thank Councillor Hammond at this point because he set up the Registered Provider Forum, where all the providers who work in our borough can come together with our officers and we can have kind of discussions about what needs to change and what needs to be done. To your specific question about selling, we do not have statutory powers over registered providers to prevent them selling. So we have no power over that. We do, however, have first refusal. And if they're selling a home that meets our decent home standards, which actually no statutory standards we stick to, we do have a budget for this. Sadly, some of the homes they're selling do not meet our decent home standards, and the amount of money we'd have to put into making them get up to that level would not make purchasing them suitable for us. So we do try to encourage RPs to invest rather than sell. And as we all know, the huge housing pressures that this borough faces, and indeed all of London faces. So whilst we can't prevent RP sales, we can do our bit to deliver affordable homes. And just 2 weeks ago, I was very proud to open Hewer Street, which is new homes in North Kensington, started by my predecessor, Kim. So thank you so much. A big thank you to him for that. And we had 2 new key workers moving into 10 of the key worker flats there. And in a couple of weeks' time, I'm looking forward to opening Kelso Cochrane House, which has 38 homes for key workers and social tenants. And this is built and delivered by a Conservative council who has committed to making homes for our social tenants. So thank you for your question, Councillor Wade.
Councillor Wade.
Sorry, I think it's now working. All right. In Earls Court Ward, 6 housing association general needs properties have been sold by Octavia, Women's Pioneer and others in this last 6 weeks, with more planned by Peabody and Notting Hill Genesis. There are several reasons, but the principal reason is that many of the properties fail to meet the criteria of void financial viability assessment to comply with new EPC ratings. The borough relies on 70% of accommodation coming from housing associations to deliver on its housing needs. So we've got the problem with Millicent Buller, which I touched on last time, which is 5 houses in Redcliffe Square being sold. Now in Earls Court, we have Poolburn Court, which is 3 houses in Bramham Gardens. I understand the need with the range of housing options, and we can deliver them by the council or through developers. But the problem is that are they actually genuinely affordable? The borough's policy to buy back ex-council house properties, whereas if the policy was to match funds...
Councillor Wade.
Void, no, now I've got a void question. It would be cheaper bringing the properties up to standard. We face also the scenario with the several mergers of housing associations in prospect, sales, and the borough including 2 buildings with multiple
Councillor Wade, I know I skipped you.
No, I've got the question.
Could you please bring it to a close, if there's a question?
It's 2 buildings in Earls Court being considered for sale by Peabody. So my question of the lead member is, will the council develop a policy of match funding at the point of void financial viability assessment to prevent the loss of our much needed of social affordable housing association stock and talk to RPs about their plan for disposal and why are they not offering them to you?
Councillor McRae.
Thank you, Linda. I just about could hear your question at the end there, and I'll have to get back to you with my answer. Thank you.
I'm waiting for my answer from last time.
Yeah, so it's this one. Yeah, this one. No. Oh, yeah. I now invite Councillor Emma Dent-Coad to ask a question to Councillor Josh Randall.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Statistics on cervical screening were released on the 23rd of November for this past year. Kensington and Chelsea is once again the worst in the country at 45.9%. This is way below the national target of 80% and the London average of 61%. And I have noted more recently that the vaccination for HPV, which is of course a predeterminant for cervical cancer, for our young women is 24%, which is the lowest in London, 24% for vaccination for HPV. The commissioning of these services is the responsibility of the local authority, so this represents a continued failure of women's health in the borough by the council. As a cancer survivor, I'm very aware of these statistics, and I find it very frightening. Will the lead member please advise the council how he intends to remediate this, along with child vaccination levels, which at 73% and dropping are also among the worst in the country?
Councillor Randall, please.
Thank you, Councillor Dent-Coad, for your questions. It is a very important question, but I just have one thing to say, that the commissioning of these services are not the responsibility of the council. It is NHS commissioned service. We, however, do really work closely with the NHS in order to ensure we can get the best possible results for our residents, and obviously especially residents in St Helens Ward. So we're working closely with stakeholders, council officers, employers, voluntary sector organisations, GPs, children's services, hubs, libraries and local organisations to ensure that the NHS staff reach the people that may need the help, especially around cervical health screenings, as you rightly say. We're also working with the Integrated Care Board, which is kind of provides NHS services in this part of London, for those who may not know. And we have also launched with the NHS the Community Health and Wellbeing Workers Pilot. Now, this has been really successful so far, because so far members of any household who have had a visit by the pilot are receiving 47% more chance of catching cancer because they go to their health screenings. And for immunizations in children, this is 82% more. So that's really positive experience to doing that. As I said, early days, but it's still a positive step in the right direction. The ICB, who I said we worked with, are putting in place a number of actions to improve both measures, which includes, as I said, working with GPs with low cervical screenings for some of their members, and the creation of a recovery plan for childhood vaccinations as well. And we also do have in this borough, Madam Mayor, many people who do go through private healthcare, which may not be captured in this particular results here, but I'm sure Councillor Dent-Coad will follow that up and raise a supplementary question if she has one. Thank you.
Councillor Dent-Coad, do you have another question?
Yes, I do. I mean, I realise that work is being done, but I just wonder if the council is aware of the lack of trust behind these very low vaccination levels and what can be done about that. And that is really a relationship between authority and the people who are needing these vaccinations. Measles is on the increase, and our MMR vaccinations are the lowest in London after Hackney. Measles is a terrifying illness. It's not just a few spots. It can be life-changing, and young people can die from it. And as I say, it's not just a question of talking to the GPs. I think we need to understand the lack of trust of a lot of people in vaccinations. The anti-vaxxers, I'm sorry to say, are racing ahead, and they're very influential. And I really hope that the council, working with our local health services, can tackle that, because it is huge. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you, Duncan. No, absolutely agree with your comments there on the anti-vax campaign. I think that is a very scary thing when people start not taking vaccinations, especially as we've seen over the past 2 years. I think Councillor Kamali and I did have a run-in with some anti-vax campaigns during the COVID period, which got very passionate. I think there's even a news story on that, Councillor Kamali. So absolutely agree with you, Councillor Duncode, on that. I think we need to work with our communities as well closely to encourage that different parts of communities that may not be easily accessible by the council can actually ensure that they get the right health services and the right advice, especially around certain needs like that as well. But also, as I said, on the data point, many GP services of those people who do go private, as I said, not necessarily everyone in the borough, but a lot of people, perhaps more than any part of the country, don't necessarily share their data with NHS centrally, so we may not pick up everything like that. So, but yes, very good point there, Councillor Duncode, and I thank you for your question.
Thank you. I now invite Councillor Portia Thaxter to ask a question to Councillor Josh Randall. Councillor Thaxter.
Oh, thank you, Madam Mayor. Councillor Josh Randall, what funding and plans does RBKC have to be in an age-friendly borough, building on the World Health Organization age-friendly cities framework?
Councillor Randall.
Thank you, Councillor Thaxter, and again, second time up this evening. So thank you for your question. And I must say, Councillor Thaxter is a great advocate for public health in her ward. She's done great jobs in coming to our meetings on St Charles and Gordon Hospital, especially working with the ICB and the CNWL. So I really want to congratulate Councillor Thaxter for putting her residents first and really flying the flag for people to get the health assessments that they need. Hopefully, Councillor Thaxter, you'll be pleased to know that much of our work, actually, in the adult social care portfolio does align to the World Health Organization's age-friendly cities framework, and that's really, really good. And in fact, what we've done is that we've recently launched our new health and wellbeing strategy from 2023 to 2033, which we launched in North Kensington very recently. Myself and Councillor Balathalasis of Westminster City Council, my colleague there, launched the health strategy together to make sure that in part, that we can be an older people's place where people can come and really live their life to the fullest. So we're supporting mental well-being, having a good home, which is really important, and working my colleague here, Councillor McVeigh, on that, and be part of a community where people can really feel part of the needs. As you may know, we have our dementia plan as well that looks at the roadmap for various dementia care, that looking at the holistic approach, providing through aged care checks and commission services. And again, Madam Mayor, we are committed as a leadership team for new 65 aged care facilities on Lots Road. So that will really come to pass in that particular element as well. And we also have our carer strategy as well, which we just launched through at that particular facility as well. So we have that has direct impacts on residents' lives, well-being, and to ensure that we are very much part of an age-friendly borough. But also, the council's hospital discharge team and community independent services, we work really closely, and they're a really good team, I must say. And we've got really good, dedicated council officers who work in our hospital discharge team to ensure that people who do leave hospital that may need help to go into their own homes get the best possible service that they can. And I'm really proud of the team that does that in order to do that. So hopefully, Councillor Thaxter's residents in St Helens will be benefiting from that as well. Thank you.
Councillor Thaxter, do you have any more questions? Thank you. I now invite Councillor Marwan Nlagi to ask a question to Councillor Taylor-Smith.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. My question is, in what way is our council supporting local businesses, specifically those that have been affected by the Grenfell Fire Tower tragedy, and within that confined area, 200 and 500 meters, and if there is any plan that's to address the arches in Lockton Street, which is located in my ward, Nottingdale. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Lagi. First of all, can I just thank you for keeping to the script? As just an aside, I think these questions that we've had tonight is something that the Admin Committee should review. I think I probably have the record now on number 9 questions, and with rights to reply, this is sort of taking quite a long time. But anyway, that's a different matter. In response to your question, so let's start with the Lockton Street arches. So I really, more than anybody, understand the preciousness of having space in Nottingdale, and it is outrageous to see things empty. So something that should be really positive and a contribution is actually creating problems and very much not helping people move forward. So the 11 arches plus the yard space are owned by Transport for London, and their aspiration to bring them up to a standard and run them as affordable workspaces, but after many years of lobbying, and apart from the limited success of Samio using one of them for storage, that has not materialised. So I can report a little bit of optimism because they have recently indicated that they do remain committed to bring forward accessible, affordable workspace, and work is due to start in spring 24, and they anticipate being completed by the end of 24. So fingers crossed, and I will continue to lobby, and I will continue to impress the strong community interest in the arches, and this really needs to be affordable, truly affordable. So responding to your further question about how the council is supporting local businesses, specifically those affected by Grenfell fire. So in the aftermath of the Grenfell tragedy, the council was worked in partnership with GLA and the Portobello Business Centre, and we provided targeted support for the businesses within that impact area. And this has included direct financial support, access to independent advice, and development of a local business network. So where survivors and bereaved wish to return to their activities, we provided advice and support to enable to do that, and we'll continue to do so. So the council has recently started and commissioned support through the North Kensington Connection, and it's a link to connect businesses in the vicinity across North Kensington. And the council is very keen to support residents wishing to explore and develop their own business ideas. And in partnership with the Lancaster West neighbourhood team, we have the Rebel Business School, which is a pop-up business school that's been developed. And they ran a fantastic programme last week at the Museum of Brains, which I and 50 residents attended, and it's something which I'd very much like to see that we support as well. So equally, local businesses in the construction industry can join the council-funded local supply chain project, which connects them to businesses and procurement channels. So, but really to conclude, I'd say we obviously must do more, and we must look at the ongoing recovery in this area. And so I very much encourage all of the local stakeholders to respond to the current consultation that we have on the recovery programme, and to give their views about the shape of future support for Grenfell and what help we can give residents and local business owners in the facility to progress with their ambitions. Thank you for the question.
Councillor, do you have another question?
Yeah, thank you so much, Madam Mayor. Thanks, Councillor Taylor Smith, regarding the assurance that this will be continuing to lobby TfL, especially the street opposite Latimer Road Station is really getting quite a concern for me. So I'm glad you are lobbying TfL to get this into shape. And the other thing is, I will really appreciate if the officers in the council to inform us with that list, so I can do my part to encourage our local businesses to fill in these forms and give the feedback, because I've seen some really good emerging businesses who are really struggling for support, especially post-Grenfell and post the COVID pandemic. We have fantastic businesses emerged on the small garages, electric conversion for Beetle converting into electric car. Another one, AI system from a local business. So I will conclude here. Yes, I do apologize, but really just to reinforce that the concept, because Nottingdale, I see it, and the council in their strategy is a top priority.
No, I appreciate that.
So I would like to see that to be well communicated, to acknowledge the good work our officers are doing. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Taylor Smith. Thank you. given the time, we will go straight to item 15, the appointments to committees and outside organisations. I invite Councillor Talasitis to nominate the appointments listed in his name on page 29 of the main agenda pack. Councillor Talasitis.
Yes, I want to move all of the appointments in my name.
I invite Councillor Lowry to nominate the appointment listed in his name on page 28. So appointments approved? Yeah, thank you. There's no urgent business to bring to the Council's attention. That concludes the business of this evening's meeting of the Council. The next meeting of the Council is a full Council meeting scheduled to be held on 31st of January 2024. Good evening, everyone. Wishing you all a happy Christmas. Best wishes for New Year. And thank you all for being so wonderful, given the rather animated evening we have had. So thank you all. And may I... Thank you. Thank you.
Well done, Madam Mayor.
You're all too kind. May I also just suggest, but please do not feel obliged in any way, all officers, the security, everybody is invited for a quick drink if you wish to come in. Because it's been a busy evening and you are absolutely fabulous, as always. And so please, do join us, but I know, do not feel obliged in any way, but we would love you to come and join us. Thank you all. Good night.